right, it's all yours, man. It's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you all, and thank you, VMware, for having us here tonight to explore the hero's journey and how the hero's journey has something for all of us. I'd like to start tonight with a question. Who was your hero? What challenges did they face? What limitations did they overcome? Could have been a father, a mother, a sister, a brother, a teacher, an athlete, an actor, someone you met on a plane, a train. It's not really so much who it was, but what did you learn from them? What did they do that motivated you to do something different, to make a change, to do something with your lives? My life was influenced by one hero, Superman. He was strong, he saved the day, and he got the girl. I wanted to be like Superman. So, could we sync up the slides, please? So I'd like to start with, what is the hero's journey? Think of it as a cycle. Think of it as something we all go throughout our lives. We start off at home, and at home we decide it's time to do something. So we depart, we take off. Along the way, we have trials, and eventually we return home. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey, and hopefully that'll help you with your journey. So for me, home, this is the next slide, there, very good, thank you. So for me, home was Washington, D.C. That was the status quo. When my parents met, my mother was a secretary and my dad was an attaché at the State Department in Washington, D.C. My mother came from a small town in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. My father came from Oakland, California. When they got married, my mother's job, her job pay and her rank was higher than that of my father's. So when I was a year old, we were shipped off to Jerusalem for my father's first position overseas. We didn't know it, and it was long before CNN, BBC, Facebook, but there was a polio epidemic in Jerusalem at the time that was ravaging the country. Shortly after arriving there, I came down with polio. And as you can imagine, for my parents, in their early 30s, living far overseas, life changed. And suddenly, we had to go back to America, and I went into the Polio Rehabilitation Center in Washington, D.C. If my body was a data center, 70% of my motor nerves would be offline. The good thing is that polio doesn't affect what are called the waterworks, and that's something my wife and I are both very happy about. But at the same time, we had a doctor. Doctor was Dr. Adams. Dr. Stoneface Adams is the way my parents used to call him, because he had no sense of humor. He said 3 things to me. He said, "Gregory, you'll never walk. And you're going to have to undergo a bunch of operations on your legs. And swimming in a warm water pool would be good for you." So we couldn't control the first 2, but we could do something about the pool. Through a connection with my grandfather, we were allowed to use the White House pool. And that's a pool that had been built for FDR long, long ago. This was before terrorism and everything, and my mother and father and I would go through the White House, go to the pool, and go swimming. Here's a picture of me and my dad on the left side there. I kind of claim that my swimming career started and also ended at the White House, because the other picture of me and Bill there, that's after the 2000 Sydney Paralympics, when I kind of retired from swimming. When I was 5, my parents took me to the school for kids with disabilities. And I remember going in there and looking around and thinking, this is not my tribe. I don't belong here. So I asked my parents to take me to the regular school, the school where you guys would have gone to school. And we went there, and we met the principal, and he was all really nice, but he said, hey, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Burns, we like Gregory, but there's 2 floors in this school, and there's no elevator. And no one's going to carry him between his classes. So he can't go to school here. And my mother, who was always one for not taking no for an answer and being deaf to the doubts of others, she said to him, well, if he can climb the steps, can he go to school? And the principal said yes. So she marched me home, and that summer, my father and Uncle Scott built some stairs in our backyard. And instead of playing soccer and baseball and football in the summer, I spent the summer going up and down those steps. I was climbing steps towards opportunities I never even knew I'd have. But I think that was a time when I realized that sometimes you have to do stuff to prove yourself to others. At the same time, I was realizing that I like to move. I like to get around. I'd like to go from A to B without using fossil fuels. So I figured out how to get there using my arms and my hands. So I learned to walk, I learned to rock climb, I learned to bike, I learned to scuba dive, I learned to ski. I learned everything to use my hands to be able to do what I wanted to do physically. The first thing I ever did that was kind of tough was the Honolulu Marathon. This is back in the old days when you had to apply for stuff with a letter and a stamp, not online. So I applied to the Honolulu Marathon, I sent off my letter, and they sent me my bib, and I went off to Honolulu, and 6 o'clock in the morning with 1,000 other runners, bang, the gun goes off, and I started running, or hopping, if you will. That was 6 o'clock. By 8 o'clock, all the Africans had finished. By 10 o'clock, the good runners had done. By 12, all of you were finished. And by 2 o'clock, Hawaii went back to being Hawaii. But I was somewhere near Diamond Head or something, and I was still running. And I kept running, and I kept running, and I kept running. 16 hours later, I came and crossed the finish line. I came in dead last. But I learned at that time that sometimes you don't have all the answers. And sometimes you have to take a chance. And sometimes you just have to go without knowing all the answers. So how do we turn our limitations into strengths? By being deaf to the doubts of others, by climbing those steps towards opportunity, and for adapting and finding another way. The second part of the hero's journey is departure. That's when you decide it's time to take a journey, time to change something. So my departure was from California, where I was living a pretty comfortable life. I was living on the beach in Santa Barbara, and my toughest decisions were, do I go surfing today or do I go rock climbing? And do I have Munster cheese or cheddar cheese on my sandwich? So I realized that my life was a bit empty. I wasn't sure what I was doing. I felt a little bored. So I applied to a bunch of different programs. I applied to the Peace Corps, and I applied to the Red Cross, and I applied to many, many different companies. And I also applied to study Chinese art in Taiwan. So eventually I decided that's what I would do. I would go to Taiwan. I would follow my heart, I'd follow my art, and I went to Taiwan. And in Taiwan, I found mentors. I found a calligraphy teacher who didn't speak English, but he could paint and he could write with his brush. And I met an artist named Liang Danfeng, a very famous Taiwanese artist. And she taught me about Chinese painting. But more importantly, she taught me about Chinese culture and Chinese values, about filial piety, respect for elders. She taught me a lot about what it was like to be in Asia. After that year program, I decided I wanted to go into China. I thought I'd spend the summer backpacking around China for a couple of months and then go back to California. But after 2 months backpacking through China, I was in Tibet. And I think, well, Nepal is just across the Himalayas from here. So I took a bus and I went to Nepal. And then a month later, India is just across the mountains here. Why don't I go there next? So I took another bus, and I went to India. I spent 9 months traveling all over India, bus and boat, walking, train. Somewhere along the line, I decided I think I should go back to Taiwan and have an exhibition of my paintings and my photos. But I didn't want to fly, and I managed to go through Pakistan over the Karakorams and back into China, and across China to Hong Kong, and back to Taiwan. So I left Taiwan with $2,000 in my pocket, and 16 months later, I came back with $400 in my pocket. So you can do the math on that. But I was traveling by myself and learning a lot, and one thing I realized that sometimes we have to go without knowing all the answers. Sometimes we have to trust that we'll get to a junction, and at that point we'll have to decide, do we turn left or we turn right? I was living in Taiwan for a few years, and I was working at a company making radio and television programs. And then my sister decided to get married, and the girlfriend I had at the time and I decided to go to California to attend the wedding. But on the way back to Taiwan, we decided we'd stop in Bora Bora in Tahiti. So we were staying in that bungalow you see there on the left side. And after a couple of days, I was on the jetty, and I was sketching the sunset. And as I was doing that, these two young ladies walked up to me and they asked me what I was doing. And I said, well, I'm sketching. What are you doing? And they pointed out to this boat on the horizon. And you can see that boat in the bottom right picture there. They pointed out this boat. They said, well, we live on that boat. I said, well, what are you doing? They said, we're sailing around the world making television documentaries. Said, wow, that sounds exciting. How could someone join that? They said, well, I don't know, but why don't you come to lunch tomorrow? So they sent the Zodiac the next day. They took me back to the boat. I met the captain. I met the crew. And I realized that they were heading across from Tahiti all the way to New Zealand, Australia, to Palau, Philippines, Taiwan, and China. And they were going to make documentaries in China. Unfortunately, I spoke Chinese. So they asked me if I would join. And I sheepishly went back to my girlfriend on the jetty and I said, listen, I can't pass up this opportunity. I've got to go. So I'd say that 2 times, once in California and once on the jetty in Tahiti, I had to give up my comfort zone for something else. So why do we? Why do we give up what we have for what we might become? Because I think when we follow our heart, we find the stuff that's really important for us. And in the unknown, we find opportunities. And along the way, hopefully, we have some stories we've lived that are worth to tell our grandkids about. The third section of the hero's journey is trials. You know, along the way, we face challenges, we face limitations, we've got to go through hurdles. So for me, I thought the Paralympics would be that hurdle for me. That's where I could find out what I was really made of. So I've had 3 Paralympics, the Barcelona, Atlanta, and Sydney Games. And the Paralympics are the second biggest sporting event in the world. And the thing about it, all these other athletes there, they're all missing parts of their bodies. But they're not complaining. They're not complaining that they're missing an arm or a leg, or for that matter, 2 arms and 2 legs. And they're all training. And they have to train incredibly hard all year round. And the way the Paralympics work is they have a classification system where doctors look at every athlete and give them a classification between 1 and 10. So a class 1 would be someone with no arms or no legs, a complete quadriplegic. And a class 10 would be somebody like missing a hand or a foot, something small. To give you an idea, I'm a 6. I'm somewhere in the middle. So let me show you a little video now. This will give you an idea of some of these other Paralympians. So looking around at all these other athletes between 1 and 10, I realized that there's always somebody better off than me, and there's always somebody worse off. So there's no point in complaining about what I have and what I don't have. And what's really important is maximizing what we do have. So that's the message I took with me from then on, making the most of what we have. I swam a lot for 27 years, and I got a few gold, a silver medal, but the most important part about it was with my team. This was the team in 1996 at the Atlanta Paralympics. We set 2 world records in 2 relays, and I never swam faster in my life than when I swam with another team. And I don't know about you, but sometimes being with a team gives me energy that I don't always have just for myself. Being part of something bigger than myself. After the Paralympics, I thought I had to do something else with myself. And I'd never done an Ironman. It was kind of audacious to think about it, but it was a new staircase, something for me to climb. So I started training, and I went off to Korea. And the Ironman, for any of you who have not done it, is kind of a pretty substantial race. This Ironman was in Jeju Island. And first it was a 3.8 kilometer swim in the ocean, followed by a 180 kilometer bike ride around the island, and then a marathon if you're still alive. And if you wanted to get that little medal, you had to finish that in all under 17 hours. So here's a little video about that was done by ESPN.
The swim is a concern as the athletes migrate down to Chungmung Beach. Everyone takes notice of the conditions. Today might be tougher than expected, but this is an Ironman. Assessing what's to come, over 1,000 athletes gather. Some test the waters, others prepare mentally. For many, this will be the biggest physical accomplishment of their lives. For others, it's simply another challenge in life, a feather in the cap, so to speak.
Gregory Burns, 48. As a painter, I oftentimes start a painting without a clear direction of where I'm going, what I'm going to do, and I just start into it. And sometimes when I'm training, I don't really want to get in the pool and swim. But I know if I get in and just get over the hump, I'll probably finish the whole workout. I know if I take the first step, the second one will probably be easier. So there's that momentum that you build after starting. You know, I think we all have notions or ideas or a feeling of what we can and can't do and what we need to do. And to me, that's what a challenge really is when you come up against something that you know you're meant to do. And if you know you're meant to do it, then you have to do it.
Have a good trip.
One of the most limiting things is just not even trying.
So I think, like with any audacious goal, it's all about taking that first step. Because you know, if we take the first step, the second, and the third, and the fourth will be easier. And the fifth, and the sixth, and the seventh, you'll start building momentum. And as you build momentum, it gets even easier. So my goal was to finish this in under 17 hours, which I managed to do. And I came in 658th out of 1,000 able-bodied people. So how do we... Thank you. It was a long day, kind of like your day today, I think. You guys have been going a long day. So how do we achieve audacious goals? We try to maximize what we do have, and we don't complain about what we don't have. And we go one step at a time, and then we build momentum. You know, I did a lot of stuff physically, and I realized that all of our accomplishments are important. But in fact, our relationships and our tribe is important. The fourth step of the hero's journey is to return, to go back. You go back to your tribe, your community, your family and friends, your colleagues, and you share what it was you learned along the way. I met a guy named Paul, and 3 years before I'd met him, Paul was riding his bicycle on Holland Road, about 6 miles from here, and he crashed, and he broke his neck. And when I met Paul, I was really impressed with how hard he had worked just to get back to zero, just to walk again. It just so happened that Paul worked for a company called Diageo. And as you may or may not know, Diageo makes Johnny Walker. And Johnny Walker's tagline is "Keep walking." And I thought that was my tagline. But when I met Paul, I thought it'd be interesting to give him a little challenge, something that was fun, something that was interesting. So we decided we'd try to climb some mountains together. And he talked Diageo into making a movie about it. Let me show you the trailer for that movie that came out of that.
It's the strangest thing, because even from that moment that I regained consciousness on the road, I kind of thought I was going to be fine.
My memory of polio is quite vague as a child. Someday you go, oh, wait a minute, my friends are running around outside and I'm hopping around on crutches. They call them orthotics. They've carried me all over the world. When I met Paul, I kind of sensed that it'd be good to put a little fire under your you-know-what.
Ladakh is a province way up in the north of India on the Tibetan plateau.
This is the beginning.
Off we go.
I don't think anything prepares you for this. You know, it's the first time in my life, in a way, I thought I might not finish something I started.
There's something enormously exciting that's coming my way through my life now. This trek is part of that.
I never had another person that was physically challenged, and that we could just dive into things that probably we never would do with other people. I don't think I'll ever forget this experience.
So again, as we circle back to our tribe, we harness those talents, those gifts, those treasures we've learned about and gathered along the way, and we share that with others, and we feed others. And by feeding others, don't we also feed ourselves? So why do we need a tribe? It's like what you've been doing over the last day here. Finding a tribe and feeding a tribe, I think, is key, and belonging to something bigger than ourselves. Our relationships are what really matter. And I spent a lot of my life looking around, trying to prove myself, trying to accomplish things. And I realized that those relationships are what really matter at the end of it. So where are you on your hero's journey? Are you at home? Are you sitting on the fence? Are you departing? Are you taking off? Or are you along the way facing challenges? Or is it time to return home to your family, to your tribe, to your colleagues, to your company? I think it's important in closing that we remember that climbing stairs is important. Doing the things that need to be done to get us into places to create opportunities. Following our heart, listening to that voice inside us that tells us where to go next and what to do. And maximizing what we do have, making the most of what we have and not looking so much at what we don't have. And finally, finding and feeding a tribe. Feeding a tribe is how we grow and how our communities grow. So what stairs do you have to climb? What challenges are awaiting you? You know, earlier I asked you, who was your hero? I didn't become Superman. We don't become our heroes. But hopefully, some of that hero superpower rubs off on us. It makes us stronger and motivates us to be better people. You know, it seems to me that if I can complete an Ironman, you all here can build a bigger and better cloud community. Thank you very much.
Gregory Burns. Please be upstanding and a big round of applause. Thank you, buddy. Awesome. Good job.
Thank you.